Salutations, statistics supporters. This is A Stats MR here to share a presentation you can sleep through. Today we will go north to the country of Canada to discuss some agricultural statistics. The four main metrics that I will go over today are the number of farms by acreage size, 2, the number of farms by farm type, in other words, what they grow, 3, the number of farms by operating type, in other words, the business structure of the ownership, and then 4, the number of farms by province. For this one, we will go over some stats that only have the provinces, and then the last one, when we get into the number of farms by province, I'll add in the territories of the Yukon, Northwest, and then none of it. Alright, let's go into the data. So, starting with farm acreage size, we see the different categories. Some 0, some not 0.1 to 9.99, 10 to 69.99, 70 to 129.99, 130 to 179.99, 180 to 239.99, 240 to 399.99, 400 to 559.99, 560 to 759.99, 760 to 1,119.99, 1,120 to 1,999.99, and then 2,000 to 3,499.99, and 3,500 and over. Hopefully, if I have any viewers from Deutschland, that they haven't said 99 and turned off, but we'll get into the data. Alright, so the most common type of farm we see is the 0 acre farm at 18.04%, followed by the 10 to 69.99 range, then the 70 to 129.99 range. It is interesting that the 0.1 to 9.99 was less than a third, well, almost barely a third of the 10 to 69.99 range. And then unsurprisingly, the smallest group was the 3,500 acres and over range. There's the property, and that is just a massive amount. We see the total number of farms. Let's correct that here. Total number of farms would be 189,874. Now, for this data, it does not include the farms and the territories, like I said in the intro. So, Yukon, the Northwest Territories, none of it. There's none of that there. So, if someone has a farm in Whitehorse, it's not included. And then you see the graph here. It kind of tails off. So it has a tail to the right to kind of track the average to greater. Let's see this. So the mean would be, or the median would be less than the average. Next, we get into the number of farms by farm type. And the way this data works. So you'll have a major grouping, which will have 4 numbers behind it, and then you'll have subgroupings. So for the oilseed and grain farming, 1 group. Soybean farming, oilseed, except soybean farming. Dry pea and bean farming, wheat farming, corn farming, and other grain farming all make up the oilseed and grain farming. If you add up all these types, that's 65,135, which matches the oilseed and grain farming. So the oilseed and grain farming makes up 34.3% of the farms in Canada. Next to the vegetable and melon farming, which accounts for 2.67. That's made up of potato and then everything other than potatoes. Then we get fruit and tree nut farming. That doesn't have any subcategories. That makes up 3.74%. You get into greenhouse, nursery, floriculture, and production. Group 1114, which makes up 2.77%. Within that group, there's the mushroom production, the other food crops grown undercover, nursery and tree production, floriculture production. Then you get to the next grouping, it's other crop farming, which is always nebulous. You have your tobacco, hay, fruit and vegetable combination farming, maple syrup. So the maple syrup falls into the other crop production. Then you get the other miscellaneous crop farming. So again, if we add up all those different types, you get the 3510. Matches the other crop farming, which is 16.07%. Then you get into the cattle and ranching. Cattle and ranching, 25.83%. Get into beef cattle and feedlots, and then dairy cattle. Next group, we get hog and pig farming. That's just the one subgroup. 1.59%. Get poultry and egg production. That consists of the chicken egg production, broiler and other meat type chicken production. And your turkeys, got your turkeys, and the poultry and egg production. And poultry hatcheries. And the combination poultry and egg production. All other types of poultry production. Then you get into sheep. So sheep make up 1.88%, which interestingly enough was more than the hog and pig farming. So that you got the sheep and goats. Then you get into other animals production, which is 8.36. Apiculture, horse and other equine production. You get the fur-bearing animal and rabbit production. You get the animal combination. You get all other miscellaneous. You get a total of 189,874 farms. Now again, that doesn't include data from the territories like the Yukon and the Northwest. Now we look at this graphically, you can see the oilseed and the cattle take up a huge amount. Other crop farming, which again the maple syrup was included in that. Then you get the other smaller animal production, poultry, greenhouse, melons, which are essentially potatoes, and hog and pigs. Alright, now we go to the business operating framework of the farms. So half of them are sole proprietorships, 23.7%. 2.77 are family corporations, 2.42 are non-family corporations, and 0.15 are other operating arrangements. So a lot of these would be considered small businesses, in terms of a few number of owners. Now maybe they have lots of employees, but see, scroll over, yeah, sole proprietorships outrank the other types. Now we get into the data for farms by province, and then for this one I added in the territories down here, so that's why there's a slight. If you look at the data for the other types, you'll see 189,874. I get 189,874, because I don't include the territories. Although none of it had 0 farms, so the Northwest had 8, and Yukon had 88. Then we get into the land. Unsurprisingly, the province with the largest amount of farms is Ontario. Saskatchewan was second. So perhaps you have a lot of the grain coming. Oh, sorry. No. Alberta was second at 41. Saskatchewan was third. Then Quebec was fourth. Then I looked into what. Then so you have the small Atlantic provinces that have, small number, like Newfoundland, 344. Although Prince Edward Island had more than Newfoundland and Labrador, that was kind of surprising. Perhaps the soil on Prince Edward Island is very arable. We get into percentage. So, a fourth of all farms in Canada are in Ontario. A fifth are in Alberta. Saskatchewan's 17.96. British Columbia's 8.34. And all others are Manitoba 7.66. Small Atlantic, you combine all those together, you might have 4%, 3.23. And then like I say, if you combine all that, you get 0.05% for the territories. I added in the population. So the most populous province was Ontario. So you got then Quebec. Then you get British Columbia, your Albertas. Then you have New Brunswick, Manitoba. Then so you have the smaller. And this is as of Q4 of 2021. It was an estimate. So you actually have slightly more people in the Northwest Territories than the Yukon Territories. But the Yukon has 11 times as many farms as the Northwest. So then I have percentage of the population of each province. So 60% of Canadians are in either Ontario or Quebec. If you add in the top 4 provinces, so this is Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, British Columbia, you're dealing with 86.53%. So if you meet a Canadian, there's 86.53%. They'll be from one of these 4 provinces. So then I took the number of farms. How many farms are there per 1,000 people? Then I came up with the numbers. So Newfoundland and Labrador, 0.66 farms per 1,000 Canadians. Prince Edward Island, it jumps up to 7.2 farms per 1,000 people. New Brunswick, 1.85. Nova Scotia, 3.45. Ontario, 3.42. It's actually lower than Nova Scotia on farms per 1,000 Canadians. Quebec is 3.4. and Saskatchewan. Just absolutely demolished all the other provinces and farms per 1,000 people at 28.9. Alberta is 9.3. British Columbia is 3.02, which doesn't surprise me because British Columbia has a lot of mountains. Get into the Canadian Rockies and far western Alberta and then eastern British Columbia. Yukon 2.04. Northwest Territories 0.18, and then you get zero. No farms, none of it. So, 1,008 or 189,970 farms divided by 38,436,447 people. Let's get that total for all of Canada. So Canada as a whole has 4.94 farms per 1,000 Canadians. And then you see the graphic data. So, and this is kind of in order from east to west. So the agricultural belt is Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, in terms of farms per 1,000 people. Well, that is it for today, guys. This is A-StatsMR, wishing that your outcomes are positively correlated with results. Please leave a like or a comment if you have a topic that you wish for me to present on. Good luck.